All right, welcome back, passionate investors. I'm your host, George Roberts, author of Passionate Living Through Passive Investing. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey, thanks, George. I appreciate it. It's been a while.
Yeah, great. And at what point did you realize that this is not just a business setback, but that you're actually going to face criminal charges?
Oh, yeah, I honestly did not think that we had done anything illegal. During that time, my accountant and my attorney, I had an advisory board around, they were all of the opinion that we were doing everything legal, and we were upfront and honest with them about the movement of money, and that the thing that we didn't do was tell our investors, and because of that, that's where we fell, and that's where we got in trouble. And so, as I said, I did five things wrong, right? I grew way too fast. I was over leveraged, undercapitalized, didn't pay attention to the details. I should have been more aware. My partner and I had a relationship that we'd pass each other in the hall. Hey, how's it going? Great. Any problems? Anything you need? Nope, I'm all good. It's all good. And I didn't get into the numbers as deep as I do today. And, I think you have to pay attention to, 13 or 15 things from the asset management side to make sure that even if you are in trouble, you can formulate a plan to get out, you know.
Right. So we talked a lot about, the mistakes you made. If we talk briefly about the prison life, I think that would be of human interest. What was it like the first 72 hours you were in?
It was awful. I cried for the first 2 years, and prison isn't a place that you want to cry. I, you know, I couldn't understand what had happened, and it actually took me 18 months to get my arms around the fact that this is my new life. This is what I better accept it for what it is, and work on changing who I am as an individual in order to go home and make an impact.
Right. And then considering that you're probably there with a lot of violent criminals, for example, when you got asked the question, "What are you in for?" Did the answer give you better treatment or worse?
I was in a place, George, where there were no murderers and no sex offenders. I was in with, mob guys and high-ranking gang officials and, drug cartel and white-collar guys. It used to be that when you did a white-collar crime, you were in with doctors and lawyers, and it's different than that today. I was in with NFL football players and some basketball players and, some guys from the street. So it was a mix of people. Now, politically in prison, it's a different environment than it is on the street. And, it's an interesting place to get your, the one thing you want to do is gain respect. So the best way to gain respect from people is to respect people. And that's really what the objective is while you're inside.
Right. Let's move on to life philosophy. So you've had to face the consequences of bad decisions much more publicly than most people could ever imagine. So what sort of personal growth has that opened up for you in your life?
Yeah. So I think that first of all, it's gotten me closer to the Lord in my relationship there spiritually, and there was no way that I could have got through what I got through unless I had a personal relationship with Christ. The next thing I think change wise was, I have gotten my ego out of the way. And when it rises today, I have people around me that say something and check me where I need to be. And I'm able to be, listen more, right? And make changes where I need to be. Humility was a big thing for me. I don't feel today that I know it all. I continue to learn. As many years as I've been in the apartment business and in the real estate space, there's still a lot to learn. and I continue to put myself in situations where I can get educated and learn from someone else.
Yeah, and with so many people in business making bad decisions and never facing accountability, are you ever able to look back at that time and see it as a gift?
100%. There's that cliche that gets thrown around a lot. It's not what happens to you, it's what happened for you.
Mhm.
And I'm a firm believer of that. It really isn't what happened to me. It's that happened for me, because I wouldn't be the man today that I am if it wasn't for that situation.
Now, of course, most of us here in the business of working to gain the trust to get somebody to write maybe a $50,000 check or greater, we're kind of starting out from square one. Obviously, you had to go to behind square one and back again. So, what sort of lessons has that taught you about what it really takes to build trust?
Well, I think trust is built both ways, right? You and I building trust with each other, first of all, we enter into this relationship, communication, and we have to be totally transparent with each other to build trust. I think the second stage of that is that when I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it. When you tell me you're going to do something, you do it. I think trust is built on, initial foundation, and then on the actions that each of us take. As I get to know your values and you get to know my values, is that really what you're living out? Is that really what I'm living out? And, trust doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But boy, you can lose trust in the blink of an eye, And, when it comes to a business partner today or a business relationship today, I spend a lot more time evaluating that person than I had in the past. When I went in the apartment business, my partner was somebody who was a longtime friend. We had known each other for about 20 plus years at that point. And, he came to work with me in the real estate business. I taught him how to sell real estate. He was successful at real estate. Went in the apartment business, and I said, hey, just come be 50% partner with me. Wrong mistake. Wrong move on my part. Because when it got really hard, his values were not as deep as I thought they were, and his core beliefs, and not to completely throw him under the bus because I broke the law. He certainly did not show up in the moment as he portrayed himself to show up in the moment.
So, if there was one message you could deliver regarding how a thoughtful person could live a meaningful life through all your experiences, what would that be?
Care about others. How do we give back? What can I do for somebody else? What can I do today to make somebody else's day special?
All right, so let's go over your three greatest strengths. You listed capital, discipline, and downside protection, operational execution at scale, and long-term principle-driven leadership. Which one of those would you like to expound on?
I think leadership.
So, okay, what message would you like to deliver regarding leadership? So obviously you're a coach. What do you teach your coaching students about leadership?
Yeah, so I think that leadership comes with education and action taken, and then the results that come from that. I never, in the businesses I've owned over the years and the companies I've grown, I've never asked anybody to do anything that I haven't done or wouldn't do myself. I think leadership comes from encouraging others to be better than they currently are. I think leadership comes from, not because you become successful and you have a ton of money. That doesn't make you a leader. It comes from your work ethic. It comes from your desire to be better, not have more, but be better, to continue to grow. I love to continue to listen to people and read books on leadership and how do I how do I become a better leader to be able to empower the people around me to be better leaders. If you're going to grow a company, you have to be able to empower those people that are in your company to grow.
Okay, let's talk just very briefly about the market. I know 2008 hit a lot of people hard, a lot of warning signs that were present but ignored. So, what lessons could you give us about not ignoring those warning signals next time the hard times come around?
Yeah, I think this time around is a lot different than 2008. The fundamentals that got broken in 2008 are not the same fundamentals as today. Every once in a while right now, I'll see a crazy loan out there that you could get 85% loan to value on a deal, and it makes me laugh. I think people should stay away from that stuff. I think you have to look at fundamentals around your debt products that you're putting on your assets that you're buying. When you look at the difference between fixed rate debt and floating rate debt, where's the safety going to be? I'm a fixed rate debt guy. I want to wake up every morning and know my mortgage payment's the same. It's bad enough that your insurance changes and your taxes keep going up, much less you can't have your mortgage payment changing also. So fixed rate debt with a interest rate that keeps you in a positive yield position is really important. And I think that, when I coach and teach people about, investing or syndicating, there's a lot of those types of fundamentals, market fundamentals, buying fundamentals, financing, exit plan fundamentals, all strategies that we need to have in our toolbox that we continually strengthen to have a deal operate properly and exit properly.
And then moving on to passive income. So obviously something huge to me. My passive income book is behind me right now. I love the way that you describe. So I would say that you have a beautiful perspective on the duality of passive versus active income. I talked about similar themes in my book. So if you'd like to expound on that for a moment, what are the values of passive income and the values of active income? Why do you pursue both?
Yeah, I don't know that there's really truly any passive income, right? Even George, if you were to invest in one of my multifamily syndications, yeah, you get a check every quarter, and you're going to participate in the profit when we sell that deal. But you're still going to want to pay attention. You're still going to want to see, hey, are these guys doing right? You might be somebody who wants to show up on a weekly asset management call, either weekly or once a month. You might really want to pay attention when it comes to investor quarterly updates and show up for that. You might want to ask questions along the way. We post the financials in the investor portal. You should go in there and look at them. And if you have questions, if you have comments, make those questions and comments. So, passive income is a great thought, but I still think you have to take a bit of an active role in it. Now, with that said, that's a lot different than the active operations. And as I always say, there's a difference between tenants, trash, and toilets and mailbox money. And, on the active side, I love the active side because I think it's because I am a control freak and I want to make sure that things are operating properly. If I don't talk to a property manager all week, how do I know that we've got good traffic coming in? Do we make any adjustments to advertising? How many applications are we taking in? What's the income? What's the expense? Where's our AP aging? All important things to pay attention to. So as an active investor, you need to take more of a role in that and be that leader in asset management.
Love it. And I can definitely back you up on the no such thing as passive income. I spent the morning taking a look at my stock portfolio. and definitely did a lot of research, a lot of financial statements going along with that. Well, anyway, how about this? Why don't we just close with coaching? So you have a coaching business. My core intentions, I'd love to go there next. So with so many coaching programs out there, I want to give you the opportunity to differentiate what makes your program different.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. One is that I go deep when I teach all the fundamentals. So I think there's a lot of coaches out there that just give broad strokes, even in coaching.
A lot of cheerleading.
Yeah, yep. And you're left to figure it out on your own. But I like to go deep, and I like to really teach people everything and what to look out for along the way. Plus, then I also have a partnership program where I'll partner with people on their first deal as long as they've been in a coaching program with me. You know, let's talk about capital raising. You know, being a syndicator, one of the most important jobs is being a capital raiser. You have to be able to go out there and raise capital because we're a function of that capital. So I teach people from the beginning how to do that and what systems to put in place. The second most important thing is underwriting. And I spend 4 to 5 weeks in a partnership program teaching people how to underwrite, how to read the tool, how to use the tool, because we know the math isn't going to lie. And we have to look at that. And as a capital raiser, you need to know how to underwrite in order to convey the story. So I think that, you know, I go deeper in my teaching, and a lot of people blame me for not keeping it simple, but you know what? You better know. And I also will, on the other side, hold people's hands through the entire process.
So I really like that, Mike, because I know that a lot of coaching programs really beset by the issues of, as I would put it, too much cheerleading. It's all on the surface, and then you're kind of left on your own. You're just told to sort of go out there and, hey, make that deal. You know, just go out there, get it done. But not a whole lot necessarily of support coming directly from the leading figure. A lot of times, you know, you're getting coached by coaches, etc. There's a little bit of trickle down. But can you talk about success rate with you're actually mentoring people one-on-one? Is that how it works? And you're actually partnering with people. So, you know, can you talk about your success rate of people actually coming into your program and getting a first deal?
Yeah, so let me talk about two people in particular, right? And I've coached a good handful of people one-on-one. I only work with 5 people at a time because I want to make sure that I give them what they need, and plus I have my other businesses to run, right? I don't want to spread myself too thin and not be able to deliver to my clients. You know, I have one client in Arizona, Mike, who came to me about 4.5 years ago, who was struggling closing a 45-unit apartment deal. And after 3 weeks, I was able to help him get that across the finish line. And, you know, he coached with me for a year. And today, 4.5 years later, he owns 800 multifamily units, 2 commercial buildings, and is coming out of the ground with 171 unit new development. Does coaching work? If you work, coaching works. I have another client who's a chiropractor with a very successful practice in northern Wisconsin. And, you know, after coaching for 6 months, she bought her first 65-unit apartment deal. So, you know, I have a number of stories like that. I think my coaching clients, you know, in the last 4 years since I've really been doing this, I think we've closed close to 4,500 units.
Beautiful. And that's quite a number, especially considering that you do keep your number of students low. I want to say is commendable because I see way too many coaching programs that just get into, you know, the mass coaching and, you know, a pyramid scheme. I don't know what to call it, multi-level marketing. But I know all good things have to come to an end. So I just want to make sure that people have the opportunity. If you want to reach out to Mike Morawski, what is the best way to do that?
Yeah, and George, I'd like to share that I have a free master class coming up on March 18th at 6 p.m. If anybody wants a link to that, they can email me or DM me directly. But I'm going to teach in that master class creative financing strategies. I bought a lot of real estate over the years, everything from single family to 400 unit apartment complexes with little and no money down. And I believe we're entering a market cycle where these types of opportunities show up every day. And I want to teach people how to use those strategies. So I'm doing a free masterclass. It'll be a couple hours long on March 18th at 6 p.m. But if you want to reach me, I am anywhere you hang out on social media, you'll find me. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. We try to bring good content to the marketplace, relevant content to the marketplace, up-to-date news, helping people learn, get educated, and do their next deal. I love to network with people, so you could email me directly or reach out to me directly.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge and experience with our audience. Probably one of the more personal stories that we've heard on this show. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I appreciate the time.
Likewise.